Hi, Joy. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you. Looking beautiful, as always.
Thank you. How are
Oh,
you?
thank you. Thank you for coming back again after our last conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
in the dark.
yeah. Well, last time we spoke about homeschooling, and you gave us some really important tips about homeschooling. Um, and the other thing that I thought to do was to call you again so we can discuss a little more
Mhm.
um, about the aftermath of this homeschooling experience, because it's as stressful as it is for parents. The whole change is stressful for kids, because kids have been used to going to school, playing with their friends, a kind of routine that they're now removed from. But I'm not a specialist in these things. You are the expert, and maybe I could basically start by asking you, why do you think that this isolation and virtual learning is becoming a stressful experience for students as well?
Yeah. Thanks. Nice speaking to you again. Um, Let me just start by saying that compared to adults, generally children are more vulnerable to traumatic events that happen around them. Especially traumatic events that are likely to disrupt their lives. And just like you've mentioned, there's quite a huge change on their routine, as seen through school closures, the whole concept of social distancing, which is quite new to most children, the whole concept of quarantine, very new. Most children are trying to understand why we should do this. And so this is likely to definitely, cause some worry in most children, or just, I don't know, just confusion, which is expected at this particular time. And one thing that most of us might be aware is that young people, just like adults, even infants actually, and toddlers, are very keen observers of what happens around them. Of people around them, of the environment around them. That's basically how children learn, and so they're likely to notice any change in emotions in adults around them. So, for example, if their parents are happy, children are likely to notice that. If their parents, how they react to stress, children are likely to notice that and even maybe model it. So whatever is happening right now is likely to be too much for majority of children to understand, to take in. So they might have quite, they might ask questions as they try to understand what's happening around them. They might also, there might be some strong feelings that they might evoke. For example, they might be fearful, they might worry, they might be sad, they might be confused, and that's expected.
It's interesting that you say that, because that stress and fear and anxiety presents itself in different ways. I have a friend who was saying yesterday that her daughter just began bedwetting. She's 7 years old. She had stopped bedwetting, and she's
Yeah,
now bedwetting.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what other ways do you think that these anxieties could manifest themselves in children, so that we as parents and caregivers can be aware and can detect that in itself as a physiological representation of stress or fear or anxiety?
Like I mentioned earlier, children, just like adults, will display their emotions in different ways. And yes, bedwetting definitely is a sign that the child, I mean, abrupt bedwetting, for example, for slightly older children who perhaps had already been trained not to wet their beds, is a sign that the child could be going through something that is, um, arousing some anxious thoughts or emotions in them. And so you'll find that some children are actually, might start having nightmares. especially if they sleep peacefully throughout the night. Some might constantly talk about certain things. For example, they might constantly talk about death, you know, or constantly talk about some negative things in their lives. For example, what if I die? What if you die, mom? What if I disappear right now? What if
Yeah.
all of us disappeared? And also, you'll notice that some children will all of a sudden just become aggressive. They might start fighting. They might start fighting. Perhaps during play, you'll see them hitting others. You'll see them hitting perhaps their toys or just displaying some aggressive behavior. Some children might actually harm themselves. You'll see them perhaps spending lots of time maybe talking to themselves and maybe regressing to certain behaviors that they never used to display before. Like you've mentioned, bedwetting, maybe sucking their thumbs, maybe just being hard on themselves, saying things like, I'm not so good at this. Why am I now not doing this? I think I might fail exams, I think I might not do well. So those could be signs that the child is going through a traumatic experience. And these signs, parents need to be, and guardians need to be very keen. And when they notice these signs, I think it's important for them to initiate conversation. Some children will take, some conversation will help them. Love, for example, will help them to deal with this kind of trauma. But also, it's okay for parents and guardians to perhaps seek professional help when they notice these kind of signs in their children.
As we know, we're in challenging times. None of us prepared for something like this. Parenting is complex enough, but parenting
Yeah.
through a scary period like this is nothing that most of us are prepared for. So I'd like perhaps for us to think or to talk about some tools that we can equip parents with and caregivers to be able to support children.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
why I probably could ask you what three things, I hang on to this, the three things. What three things do you think that parents can do or should do to support children?
All right. So I will call my three things the three R's. The first one, reassurance. The second one, routine. And the third one is regulation. So in terms of reassurance, children, just like us adults, children also like to be reassured that, for example, they're not going to die, that, nothing, okay, that they'll be fine, that things will be okay, that this is just a period and we are going to, it will be past us at some point, that it's okay to go through this phase, but we'll come out stronger. So they need to be reassured. They also need to be reassured of, that they'll be safe, that we still love them. So we constantly need to tell them how much we love them, how much, even though we're going through a difficult time, it's good that we have them with us. This sort of, plays like a cushion. It provides some comfort in them towards actually having, some positivity as they deal with this difficult period. The other R, routine, is very important. At this particular point, like we mentioned earlier, schools have closed. Children are not playing with the neighbors, for example. They're not going out, for example, just running around. However, if possible, I would say that parents should maintain certain routine that is possible to maintain. So, for instance, regular bedtimes. If the child usually goes to bed at 8 p.m., try as much as possible to maintain that so that they sleep enough, they wake up, whenever they usually, during the time they usually wake up, when they wake up, they also have things to do instead of just sitting idle. And also, for example, meals, try to make sure that if they have, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 meals a day, try to maintain that schedule so that you don't break it, as this is likely to cause uncertainty and therefore increase fear and worry in children. Play is very important, and I will put that as part of routine. Play helps children to express themselves. Children learn through play. Play is a form of relaxation for children. They grow, they interact with others through play. So parents should still maintain this, even though they might not be able to go outside to play with their children in the neighborhood. But even indoors, try and provide as many play materials as possible. This is going to help them to, it will divert their attention from what is going on around us, but also it will help them to be happy, evoke some emotions of happiness in them. Very important. And the last R is regulation. I mean, just like us, when children are stressed, their bodies are likely to respond by activating certain stress response systems. And so to help them deal with these kind of reactions, we need to constantly, validate their feelings, just like I said earlier on in terms of reassuring. So they need to know that, for example, this might feel scary because perhaps people are getting sick. Every day we see on the news our CS announcing that COVID cases are going, COVID-19 cases are going up. But it's also important for children to understand that it's okay. This is like I said earlier, this is a phase, but it's all right. We are here with them. Give them a hug. Tell them constantly when they go to bed. Remind them just how great they are. Tell them they're good at something. Remind them of perhaps if you had good times together last time. Remind them of such kind of moments. It helps them to think only about positive things, and also encourage them in activities that help them to self-regulate. For example, exercise, like I said earlier, play, but also exercise in the house. For example, do some stretching exercises, let them run around. Deep breathing, for example, if possible. I remind them to drink enough water. Remind them, for example, to eat healthy. So simple things, but very important. They're going to help to manage stress and whatever is happening around. And one last thing that I want to say also is that parents should provide information. It's very important. Like I said earlier, children will ask questions about what is going on, and providing information, what we call child-friendly, in child-friendly ways, and also age-appropriate information. Of course, it's not healthy to focus on deaths, but perhaps thinking of ways to make it, to present it in a way that children will understand. I saw, for example, there was a poster that was doing rounds on WhatsApp on explaining COVID-19 to children in a child-friendly way. So that kind of information will be good for them, because information will also help them to understand. In their little ways, it will be very important for them to cope with what is happening around them.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
the reason that we must discuss these issues is I know that previously we have discussed in other places about the ACE study, and it's indeed true that traumas in childhood sometimes last for a really long time, and sometimes parents are not aware
Yeah.
of the kind of impact that stress has on children, because we think that children don't get stressed. Um, so when parents are stressed, children do get stressed. And so it's
True.
an interesting time we find ourselves in, that we're all stressed, and we need to put on our helmets, and then perhaps put on our helmet for the children.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joy, thank you so much for your time. Do you have one last thing you want to say to us, parents who are homeschooling?
In terms of homeschooling, I would say we just keep at it. Don't try to be a perfect teacher, stroke parents. Just do what you can. Give the
Yes.
your child better. Do your best, but also take care of yourself as a parent. And I also say
Yeah.
try and limit exposing children to to so much media coverage, so much social media, and
Yeah.
adult conversations around the pandemic, as this
Yeah.
will just likely is likely to aggravate the situation, instead of helping children to deal with what's happening. So there are no rules to this, but let's try to be to spread positivity, to remind our children that we love them, and just to
Yeah.
be happy even during these difficult periods.
Because that's all we can do, isn't it? That's all
Yeah,
we can do. Yeah.
indeed. And
Joy.
we cannot be hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
This is something that we can't control, but we
Yeah.
can only manage it, try and manage our emotions, our
Mm.
feelings and everything as we go through it.
You know, uh, there's the one thing that you have said, that it's okay to not know. I think
Yeah.
we as parents think that it's a display of weakness if our children know that we don't know. But no, it's okay to not know. It's okay to say,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's okay to say the world did not understand this thing properly in the beginning, so we're learning as we get along.
Yep.
And so, yeah, yeah, it's good that we say that. Joy, thank you so much for making your time on a Sunday evening in Nairobi. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Oh, always happy. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much, and have a good night and keep safe.
You too. Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.